comments by any citizen who's in attendance today. And I'm making just a comment for the record that any written public comments submitted may be requested from the city staff. And that's how we'll be handling the written comments today.
Are there written comments?
We're going forward
Are there written
to the
comments?
regular agenda. And we have item 1 is presentation of the 2021 Pavement Assessment Study and Report, K. Freese and Associates. And Manager Lewis, would you like to introduce and just go over basically what we're planning to do today?
Sure. Today, the agenda item is the presentation of the 2021 Pavement Assessment Study performed by K. Freese and Associates. This is the presentation day. There will be an agenda item next Wednesday to discuss their presentation. This will give the council ample time to review what was presented. We will be placing the presentation on our website for people to review, and also give the citizens ample time to make comments before that meeting. And as stated, by our agendas, that if you have a written comment, it has to be received before noon in our offices on the Tuesday, the day before the council meeting. So we do have Adrian Freese back here and Ryan Bell up here. So Ryan is actually the one that did the majority of the study. Adrian was involved with it, but I think Ryan, you're going to make the majority of the presentation, aren't you?
That's correct.
May I make one other comment that we will not be discussing nor taking questions on the presentation today. We, in the interest of not having a delay in the spring plan for our perhaps going out for our bidding and to move this project forward, this was a special meeting in order to have the presentation and then have a week before the citizens and council and members will have opportunities to discuss and to have questions. So they will be back to visit us next week, and we will be agended for that purpose. I just wanted to make that clarification. This is, again, a special meeting so that we could stay on track and not have any delays in the process of our roads and pavement issues.
Let me clarify. So council can't ask any questions today?
No, sir.
Okay. How does that work, Bud, with an open meeting where council can't even ask the presenter a question?
Bud, would you like to address
I asked him.
Councilmember Foley's question?
Yes, I don't believe that there is the ability to prevent discussion on an agenda item. There's two ways that an agenda item can be listed, and that is discussion or discussion and action. And if there is someone that is making a presentation, I do not believe that a council member can be denied the opportunity to either, one, ask questions, or two, give their thoughts. Now, whether or not those questions are answered or can be answered is a different matter, but I do believe those things can happen.
So you're clarifying then that the regular agenda item for presentation did not include discussion or action, yet discussion is still available to council members and
Those are the two general categories in which one can
Yes.
fall, which is either discussion or discussion and action. And again,
we
whenever
have no discussion or action on this agenda.
understood.
But I mean, you're saying it either has to be discussion or action or discussion and action. I mean, so in other words, we should be able to ask questions today?
Those are the two general categories under which an agenda item can fall: discussion or discussion and action. The express removal or non-inclusion of those terms isn't necessarily dispositive of what can happen. So in other
Right.
words,
So
if an item is not listed as an action item, then it wouldn't to take action. However, I don't believe that there is anything that can ever prevent a council member from engaging in reasonable discussion if they are recognized and asking questions whether or not they're answered.
So let me just readdress the council and the citizens that on this item, discussion will be allowed and questions may be asked. And that will be how we will proceed today after the presentation. So, are we ready to go?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. And thank you for their kind words about our firm. We enjoyed working on those projects for Hays County, as well as this one. So today I'm just going to give a summary of what our pavement assessment, how it was performed, and the results that we found. To give an overview of the project, our contract with the city for this work authorization was executed back in November. The work authorization included a visual assessment of the street conditions as they are, and with the goal of developing a priority ranking of streets. Just because, street doesn't appear on the first year's whatever doesn't mean it doesn't need attention, but we're trying to develop a prioritization. The future work authorization will cover the final engineering of any improvements that move forward. What we understand about the history of the city streets, from talking to people and also our own observations, it appears, or the streets are apparently, they were mainly constructed in the 70s and the 80s. They're mostly asphalt. There are some concrete sections, and the certain street sections are concrete. What we found seemed to align with what we were told, is that the initial street construction was mainly what we call a two-course surface treatment, or a chip seal, that was placed down over the native subgrade, which is apparently like a caliche type subgrade, which is very good, a very good subgrade. It's non-expansive. So that was how it was constructed. We also understand that there have been maintenance projects in the past to upgrade with the, or not upgrade, but to resurface some streets with chip seal. Now, the methodology for our pavement assessment, this is something that was, it's called a pavement condition index. It was developed by a municipality in Canada. And what it is it allows for to develop a score for each street segment based off visual observation of different types of pavement distress that you'll see: potholes, cracking, different types of cracks, severity, how extensive. When we do that, that all gets plugged into a formula, and each street segment is then given a score, a score of 0 to 100. So it's like you're in school, with 100 being an absolutely perfect street. And you'll never see a 0, but I guess it's theoretically possible. The wrong way. Okay, a little explanation of what PCI is. It is a subjective observation. It is down to the eyes of the person doing the inspection. Two people could go out and produce slightly different set of results, especially if all the streets are in very close to similar condition. It accounts for the different types of pavement distress that you would see. All of that gets plugged into the formula. Different, like I said, different observers may come up with a different set of scores, but the ranking should be fairly similar. For this one, we made sure that we had one person doing all of the observations. I was with them the first day, and I kind of describe it as being like a baseball umpire. Every umpire may have a different strike zone, but as long as his strike zone is consistent, it's not an issue. And so that was our goal, our approach to doing the assessment. It's important to note that it's a snapshot in time. We could come back in a year and maybe get different results because different streets degrade at different rates. Some have higher traffic than others. Sometimes a problem will manifest and degrade very rapidly. So it's important to note this is a snapshot in time. And it's a useful, fairly inexpensive way to develop a prioritization of street condition. What it is not an objective test made by a piece of high-tech measuring equipment that's going to give you an objective number that it measures. Those technologies do exist. They're very expensive, and what we believe would probably more than what this project needed. It does not result in any kind of engineered pavement design that says, okay, do 4 inches of asphalt over lime treated it's not that. That is a different exercise that takes into account soil borings, and that's more of a final engineering thing to do. Repair strategies identified in this are usually general in nature. They say with a street with this PCI, then we recommend more preventative maintenance, or we recommend reconstruction or resurfacing. So all of that to say, let me go to this one first. This map is in the report, and so this is the results I think that everybody's kind of keen to see. What we did is we grouped every street that city maintained got a PCI score. It got an evaluation and a score. We tried to group similar score. Well, we grouped similar scores together. And so we see it ranked streets with a PCI of below 85 is kind of our pass at the first priority streets for upgrade. And then it goes up from there to pink, light green, and green. And that's kind of the order of the condition that they're in. When we look at the first one, the red streets, what we're calling the high priority streets, and we combine them, we came up with some rough costs to do that. If you were to do all of those streets at one time, it's probably on the order of like $700,000. That's probably maybe more than you have in first year's budget. So we'd probably be tackling this over the course of a few years. But we'll be working with your staff to determine that. I want to get into a little bit about the repairs that we believe should be considered. Oh, well, I guess I wanted to present some of the common things that we saw out there. There's a whole world of different types of distress. Out here, we saw mainly 2 or 3 that kept manifesting. First one is called raveling. And that is when your surface starts losing some of the rock. And it gets this kind of cheese gratery type of surface. I suspect that that's not at all surprising given how the streets were originally built, that over the years that rock will delaminate from the asphalt. The second common one we saw was alligator cracking. You probably see this all the time. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a cracking formation that looks like the skin of an alligator. And of course, the potholes. This actually came from the city, this photo. And it also shows what I was describing earlier, very, very thin layer of asphalt and then over the native material. Given that type of initial street construction, it makes a lot of repair strategies not feasible. It's be very hard to do crack sealing on something like this. Milling that off, milling it down to resurface would be probably a non-starter. And we also we wanted to recommend something that made sense, that was good, that you were going to be able to maintain, and would look nice and would provide just a good pavement surface. So one repair strategy that we're recommending is the pothole spot repair. So anywhere you see that on a street segment, I'll cut that out and just fill it in with asphalt. Cost from that we've seen in other cities is about $50 a square yard. Those costs were factored in on the cost estimate provided. We didn't count potholes, but we took an approximation, 20%, whatever. Not much concern lifespan wise. If the surface over it is nice, you keep water out of it, there's no reason it shouldn't last indefinitely. The next one that we were going to recommend is just an asphalt overlay. More than likely a 2-inch fine graded asphalt, nice surface ride quality. That is going to be more substantial than the original street construction, which has been around for 30 something years. And so if it's maintained, the crack sealing, there's no reason it shouldn't last at least that long again. Typical costs, we're estimating about $25 a square yard for that. With proper maintenance, these can last in excess of 20 years. And we're not recommending it, but I want to just do a little, because this is what you've been experienced with in the past, is the chip seal. Just want to talk about it. That's what it looks like. It's where they spray down the tar, the asphalt tar, and then spread rock over it. I understand it's been done here. A lot of times it's not very desirable because the rocks wash off the side of the road. They get in people's yards and ditches. The tar will stain the side of a car. It's substantially cheaper. It's about a third the price. That's why it's pretty popular among county roads, likes to use them. Typical lifespan of that is about 7 years. So, so if the chip seals that were done in the past, if they were more than 7 years ago, I suspect they're probably starting to show their age as well. And so we feel that the asphalt overlay is the better solution. And that's the end of the presentation. So. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
City Council Member Pulley has his hand up and he will recognize.
Yeah, just a quick question. After the week-long storm event, I'm not sure this is on. I hope so. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. After the week-long, ice event, storm event, is that going to affect your analysis of the shape of the pavement or your recommendations? I would imagine there may be shrink swell issues that may have occurred because of that. Is this going to affect your analysis any?
I don't believe it will. I think that what we saw, the streets there wasn't a big wide range, except for a course like obviously Brook Hollow, but I don't think so. Probably they weren't traveled a lot that week. And given their age, and I mean, we're talking about a 1 week period in the streets that have been out for 30 years. I don't believe it would have impact the
Okay.
assessment.
One other question. I will tell you that I agree with the chip seal. People hate it because you're right. You end up with rocks in people's yards. It's a mess. So I'm glad that that's not being considered. I think the neighborhood is too. One other question I was going to ask you, as part of your scope of work, does it include consideration of traffic calming strategies on Woodcreek Drive or some of the more traveled streets? Has that been discussed in your scope of work?
Sure. For this particular work authorization, that was not part of that. We were strictly doing the pavement condition. Although with the next phase, and it's, you know, we've had discussions when we start looking at these streets on an individual level. If we say, okay, we're going to improve, you know, Jack Miller, for instance, from here to here, at that time, we can consider those things. We'll also need to look at drainage, because there are streets that have where the drainage goes over the top of the road. Well, I don't want to do a simple overlay on that. Because I don't want to raise the road profile, you know. So, and there may be localized drainage things. It's just, that would be the opportunity that the city could say, let's look at this while we're doing these streets. So, and certainly traffic calming could be considered any part of that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
I have lived here since 1985, and it was about the time that the resort went into bankruptcy. And I live on one of the streets that you consider to be really bad.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that you're absolutely correct about how the streets were built. They were built fast, they were not built well. The purpose was to sell as many properties as possible, as many lots as possible, and get them built. And I just laughed at one of the pictures, because you could, I'm not sure you took it right outside my driveway, but it sure looks like it.
Yeah.
So, and I've been through the experience of chip seal,
Mhm.
Palmer Lane. I live on Wilson, and it was not well received by residents based on the mess it created.
Right. And what you're describing is not uncommon for developer-built infrastructure.
Right.
And
The county likes it. Elder Hill Road, they did chip seal down. I was commuting to Austin at the time. Bad.
yeah, it's more popular with county and TxDOT
You're right.
for that. But, you know, the trade-off is that with the, you know, set amount of money, you can do more streets with chip seal than with the overlay. So it may take you longer to upgrade everything with the overlay, but if chip seal is not desirable, then.
So, the way I understand the overlay is exactly that. It's just, you're laying it over whatever's there. Right? So there's no milling up,
There is a treatment. I mean, there's you know, you clean it, you clean the existing surface, get all the loose material off, probably put down what's called a tack coat, which is basically spray black tar. Because as the asphalt gets older, that rock gets really shiny, and it's hard for the overlay to stick to it. So we put down what's called a tack coat, and then you just overlay over the top of it.
the reason I was asking is that when we've had some of these things in the past, like on Augusta Drive, and they tore it up to put the chip seal in, it's like, and there's like cables wrapping up there.
Right.
And it's like ripping it all out. It's kind of because some of our cables do not run 18 inches below the surface, surprisingly.
Right.
So but that's not something we would have to worry about. It's kind of a
Right. But it's important to consider and be aware of it. Yeah. Any other?
Council members, any questions or
Okay,
comments?
I have one.
Councilmember Brittenheim?
Was ribbon curb considered in any of your proposal?
So it was not. That doesn't mean it couldn't be considered when we move into final engineering.
One of our biggest problems is edge break.
We did see a lot of edge condition. I mean, we did see a lot of edge breakage. Ribbon curb can help with that. Most of what I saw, even though the edge of the pavement was breaking, it hadn't yet gotten to where there was a big dangerous like drop off yet. Didn't see too much of that, but I guess to answer your question, ribbon curb could be considered when we get in to do the final engineering. It's just an extra, it's just, an added cost. It will increase the cost.
By approximately.
I think,
If it's $25 a square yard,
I think you're probably looking on the order of maybe $5 to $10 a linear foot of curb that goes down. So if you have, let's just say 100-foot street, you do both sides. That's what, $500 to $1,000 for that 100-foot long street segment.
I have another question. So in considering this, does the proposal include widening any of the narrow streets? Jack Miller's only 14-foot wide mostly.
Right. And we didn't get into that because we were, again, just trying to prioritize the actual condition of the pavement. But again, like any of those types of improvements can be considered when we look at each street individually.
That's one of the reasons for the edge breaks, because two vehicles can't pass each other
Right.
without dropping
Getting
off.
off the road, right. That can be considered the things that may make that difficult is right-of-way and drainage, to make it wide. Because the street you said, how narrow was it? It was.
Jack Miller has areas that are 14 feet.
Yeah, and I think I saw one that was like 12 feet.
Mhm.
And if you want to widen that to like a 22-foot wide road where both cars can pass each other without getting off, so that's basically 10 feet of widening, and you may be taking 5 feet of property from either side to be able to make that happen. So we just have to look at it.
Yes, Councilmember Bullock.
Let me just follow up on that real quick. I can tell you that even on the wider streets, like Woodcreek Drive, which is fairly wide, we still have edge break. So I think no matter how wide you make it, that's going to be probably an issue maybe. The folks I talked to are not in favor of widening streets because we feel like that's going to, result in faster speeds and whatnot. So just bear that in mind, that it's not unanimous that people don't like the narrower streets. I think a lot of us do because it does have an effect on keeping a neighborhood type traffic pattern as opposed to a high speed traffic pattern.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Cameron.
We talk about ribbon curb, and my thoughts are that they're usually somewhere between 12 and 18 inches wide. And it is possible, part of the reason for doing a ribbon curb is to make the asphalt more stable on the edges. So is there any possibility of doing something like a 6-inch ribbon curb rather than a 12 or 18-inch ribbon curb?
Yes, I've done 6-inch ribbon curb before. So, I mean, with the caveat, obviously, it's not going to be as durable as say a 12 or 18 inch. So, but it's possible to do.
Any other questions? Comments?
Thanks.
Councilmember Brisendine, did you have your hand up?
No, ma'am.
There being no other questions, well, thank you very much, and then we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, thank you all. Thank you.
We will go to item 2 of the regular agenda. Item 2, item 3, just for information, and item 4 are really in response to the emergency that we all experienced from this terrible snowstorm last week. And so having a special meeting, we were able to agenda item some of the issues that we would want to bring before council and the general public to discuss immediately and hint to some of these issues that were identified. So item 2, discussion and take appropriate action on Citizen Emergency Management Advisory Committee. And what I would really like to do is submit to council the appointment suggestion for 3 members of the Mayor's Emergency Management Advisory Committee. And then I would also ask that the advisory committee reach out to certain individuals, and I'll reiterate that in just a moment. And then also, we would like to have the Emergency Management Advisory Committee focus on the future with having this 3-member advisory group with council approval of the committee, and then a charge to the committee to consider and report on 3 major areas. 1, communications, to coordinate future actions with our neighbor-to-neighbor program, and coordinate future actions with the social media policy development. Also to look at utilities, water, electric, internet, cable services, reviewing emergency response, recommendations for future council actions, ordinance franchise agreements, compliance, communication, and customer service. So looking at all of those areas of our utilities, because those were brought to issue with the community. And then also citizen preparedness for coordination with emergency management coordinator, the Hayes County emergency system, and develop a preparedness policy. So these are the areas that we would like to charge the committee to address. And the committee would be coming back to council reporting in 60 days with recommendations and with suggestions for actions for council to take at that time. So I would, at this time, I would like to recommend my appointment to the committee, and with council ratification or approval, Nancy Brittner, who was former Mayor Pro Tem and worked for at least 2 separate mayor terms in public safety and as emergency management as a responsibility, an area of responsibility that was assigned to her. And Jack Bose, who is very active with our PNC and actually recommended and presented a very detailed proposal to council on how to address some of these issues. And Pat Rawlings, who we feel would be an excellent member of this committee to work forward in public safety and in this emergency situation. So I would like or ask for a motion to approve the recommendation for these appointed to the committee.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we assign Nancy Brittner, Jack Bose, and Pat Rawlings to a newly created Citizen Emergency Management Advisory Committee.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Second. Councilmember Brizendine, and do we have any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Pulley.
I like all 3 of these folks, regard them as, I think, as friends, but I wish that we would have got the list before the meeting so that, we could see that and the citizens could see who's under consideration. that may also open up some more, ideas as to who else could serve on the committee. So I'm concerned about why we're not getting the information before the meeting. I think that's, I don't think that's open governance. I don't think it's right. Otherwise, I don't really have a problem with any of these folks, except for Jack. I wish you quit telling us how they do it in Houston, man. That just drives me crazy. But I support you. So with that caveat.
Is there any other discussion? No, I call the question. City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Judy Brizendine,
Aye.
Councilmember Brent Foley,
Aye.
Councilmember Jeff Rasko,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I might, I want to clear up one point here. I understand what Councilmember Pulley's saying. Ultimately, in looking at an agenda item, you've got to accurately list what it is that is going to take place. And a city does not have to go into any heightened level of detail to list everything that a committee may do or who might be appointed. Now, the mayor presiding over the meeting does certainly have the authority to make a recommendation on what a motion should be or who might fill particular spots or what duties might be assigned. The council then has the discretion to either make a motion or not make a motion, second that motion, not second that motion, and then vote for or against it. But ultimately, there is nothing that would implicate anyone not giving full and fair notice, because whatever it is that happened, the council could have rejected the slate and suggested their own slate candidates. And that would be true for any committee that's created.
Thank you for that clarification.
Can I clarify that just a second?
Sure.
Mr. Waymire, would it be best practice though to give full notice of here's what the committee's going to do, here the people we're looking to appoint in the agenda? I mean, is that a better practice?
Looking at agendas, one can always give more information than they've given before. I won't speak to best practice, but what I will say is that any member of this council may look at this agenda and have thoughts or ideas in advance of what it is that they want to individually do. And ultimately, failure to make that knowledge public in advance of a meeting is not going to constitute something that is wrongful or unlawful. It's just simply an agenda serves to ensure that the public understands what will be addressed in a very general way and how it will be addressed.
Are there any other comments? So we'll move on to item 3, discussion and take appropriate action on a resolution waiving permit fees for the winter storm related damages occurring between February 12, 2021 and February 28, 2021. And I'm going to ask Councilmember Rasko to present the resolution. This was something that he brought to the council, and at this time I'll recognize Councilmember Rasko.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. This is the City of Woodcreek Disaster Rates and Fees Waiver Resolution. And it reads, whereas on or about February 17th, 2021, Mayor Gloria Whitehead issued a declaration of disaster for the City of Woodcreek, severe freezing weather and power outages in accordance with Texas Government Code 418.108, the declaration. And whereas at the special city council meeting held on February 24th, 2021, the city council of the City of Woodcreek extended the disaster declaration of Mayor Whitehead by passage of resolution number 2021-2-24-1. And whereas the mayor and the city council of the City of Woodcreek realized there has been widespread damage throughout the city of Woodcreek from the disaster caused by the severe freezing weather and power outages. And whereas the mayor and the city council of the city of Woodcreek desire to assist the property owners as they recover from the disaster, whereas the city council of the city of Woodcreek passed and approved resolution 2019-03-13-2 establishing a master rate and fee schedule for assessing rates and fees on February 13th, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of Woodcreek, Texas. Number one, the rates and fees associated with the building permit applications required because of damages associated with the disaster caused by the severe freezing weather and power outages are hereby waived for a period of time from February 12th, 2021 to March 31st, 2021. This resolution becomes effective from the date of passage and approval. And I'd like to move that we accept the resolution.
Motion by Councilmember Brasco,
I second that motion.
second by Councilmember Brizendine. Is there any discussion?
Only
Councilmember Bullock?
question, Mr. Rasko, do you think the 31st of March is enough time? I mean, should we extend that a little bit or is
Yeah,
that enough
this is
time?
for like permitting and fees. So as damages are assessed, I think that we can probably get that done by the end of the month. And if not, we can come back to the council for an extension.
Okay.
Excellent. Is there any other comment? City Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Jeff Ransdell,
Aye.
Councilmember Judy Brizendine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Bob Hamburg,
Aye.
Councilmember Brent Foley,
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We will move to item 4 on the agenda, report on the progress of social media policy. And I'll just give a quick review just quickly on that, and then I'm going to turn this over to Aurora LeBrun, our Mayor Pro Tem. Several months back, the council did authorize the work on a updated policy of social media, and we were detained somewhat with an election and then a council member who was working with council member Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun, who is not on council, but I'll let Aurora speak to that. So we felt that this also was as part of the communications during the emergency that we all endured. We felt that it was time to go back and to review the social media policy and resume, kind of circle around back to that project. So, Councilmember LeBrun.
As the mayor said, before Councilmember Vicky Albert and I worked on a proposed modified or updated social media policy to what was approved in 2019, in early 2019. Councilmember Albert was not reelected. Upon the change in administration, I presented a summary to the mayor of what we had achieved. And it was understood that we would build on what had been done to date by the two of us and come up with a consistent social media policy for the city of Woodcreek. We have begun the process and it's very early stages. At this point, we have the foundation of what the council approved, plus what we had worked on. And then we have looked at the model social media policy for city, county, and local governments. And we will begin to meet, and probably another council member and I, and maybe requesting assistance from some citizens. There are a number of things in the social media policy that we need to consider. And that is, currently, we do have a policy, very less than a page long, that basically says the city does not maintain a social media presence. It also says that there is an expectation of the conduct of council and members of the council, including the mayor, in the use of social media. Some of us use social media more often than others. It is an effective means of communication. It is also a very dangerous means of communication, in that it can be, we have to be very clear what is an official city's position and what is not. We also have to be very careful on creating a commentary of multiple council members that would be a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act by creating a daisy chain or a so it's not an easy policy to develop. I'm up to the task. I worked on it with Council Member Albert. I am hoping that she will come in as a citizen volunteer. She has extremely good experience with qualifications in that arena. And I will be consulting with the mayor, and we will be updating citizens on where we are. And of course, as every other item, it will be up for public meeting and discussion and comment. Thank you.
I will take comments if anyone would like to make any comments at this time.
I'll just tweet something out.
Yes. Okay. Well, would you mind mentioning the training that we all received and the input from that training, which I thought
Yes.
was extremely important?
We had excellent training. It was the first in-person training in months that we had from Alan Bojorquez. Mr. Bojorquez is very experienced. I think that's how you pronounce it, right?
Borquest.
Okay. And he was an excellent training. And he presented both the benefits as well as the pitfalls with some very sobering examples of what cities and other agencies have faced as a result of not following the policy or having a policy that was not well developed. But
Yes, Councilmember Pulley.
Yes, Aurora, it's you and Vicky on the committee so far?
I said I may. I said I am in the very early stages. I will bring reports. Nothing is going to be done without making it clear. You know, at this point, I'm in very early stages. I just received, which I hope very much it won't be the same size for our city. I just received the model policy. So I'm in very early stages. So I hate to make a definitive statement as to what I would do. Once I have reviewed the model policy, once I have assessed the history and my documents, I'll be prepared to say more.
I'm just asking the composition of the committee. Is it just you and Vicky, or are there going to be other people
Meetings
involved?
with,
Who's on the committee?
There is no committee.
I don't have a committee yet. I haven't
Councilmember
had any
Pulley.
meetings. I'm just doing research on my own.
Councilmember
Okay.
Pulley,
Absolutely.
just to remind you, council took action on this matter and we appointed Aurora and Vicky to
Okay,
work on this. I believe it was upon your motion
Mhm.
back in June.
Yeah.
But it was.
all I'm asking is
No, there
who's
is no-
involved in this?
So
then?
no, there is no committee.
Okay,
There
well,
was-
it's just you and Vicky involved in this right now?
Vicky is not
I haven't reached out to Ms. Albert. I haven't spoken to her
Okay.
since she left council.
Okay,
I expressed a wish. She brings a lot to the table. It would be my wish that as we move forward, she would agree to participate, but that's all it is, a wish.
What we did, if you recall, we talked about it one time there. We finished budget session. We had an election. Then we had a COVID that came upon us. But in the meantime, we also had legislature in session and some changes were made in issues with social media. And then we also had scheduled to have our presentation and in-person training. And at that time, we were informed even more fully of issues relevant to social media policies and the importance of the policy. So we came back around to talk about that today and report to the council, especially in light of the fact that we have citizens who have had input to communications and the use of social media in emergency circumstances. We want to address all those comments and that input. But again, Aurora has graciously assumed this role again to pursue this and to study. And we just received, as she mentioned, the national forms that have been recently promulgated in this area. So we have the up-to-date news, the up-to-date history, the up-to-date laws.
It just, I got it about an hour and a half ago. Okay.
So are there any other comments? So we have item 5, and do you all contemplate that we need to adjourn to executive session for this item? So it is 2:58 p.m.
Before we do that, what's the basis for us going behind closed doors in executive session? What's the statutory basis?
Legal consultation.
Yeah, I mean, it's 551 point something, but which one?
So under the government code, the council reserves the right to recess into executive session to discuss any matters that are pertinent to that of an attorney-client relationship, including contract negotiations, pending litigation, and matters related to resolving contract disputes.
Okay, so this is attorney-client that you're invoking with regard to this contract?
There's numerous reasons for it. It's not just attorney-client.
Okay, I mean, I think we have to articulate the basis for going behind closed doors. We just can't do it because we want to. There's got to be a statutory basis for it, and that's what I'm asking. What is it?
And the statute allows for a council to recess into executive session at any point in time for attorney-client consultation based on matters that implicate an attorney's ethical obligations to its client, as well as pending and threatened litigation.
I'm just concerned as we can put a smear of attorney-client privilege and always go behind closed doors and not debate things in open meetings like we should. Oh, you think that's true? Or that's right?
I'm acknowledging your statement.
Okay, I'm going to object to the executive session. I don't think we've established a statutory basis for it, and it's dangerous because if you go in and you're not supposed to, that's illegal. You know that, right?
Councilmember Pulley, you have the authority and the right to express your opinion and to give us your comments.
And that's what I'm
They
doing,
are-
so
but
thanks.
Councilmember.
I was just wondering, because in the past, it's been on the agenda that we'd be meeting an executive session on a topic, so that's not required.
Any time during the deliberations, we may call to go into executive session for the purposes outlined in the pertinent chapter 551-071, 551-072, 551-076, and any other reason that we need to actually consult with our attorney.
Well, 551.071 is personnel matters. 074 is real property. 087 is deployment of security personnel, and 76 is, not sure, yeah, that's the security stuff. I just don't see the specific basis for being behind closed
Well,
doors.
we
The default is we
you
should all
have-
see
you
things in the
have-
open.
You have your right to express your opinion, but we will be going into executive session, and it is,
Real quick. So
Yeah.
a couple of things. One, I am going to, because I think the I think the insinuation from Councilmember Pulley was not simply that going into executive session is illegal. I think the implication was not that it is merely civilly illegal, but that it is criminally illegal. So here is what I'm going to recommend for the council to briefly recess. And then I will consult with the city manager, and we will discuss the issue, and we will see if we can assuage Mr. Pulley's concerns. If we can't, then I want to table this issue because I have no interest in a criminal complaint being made against anyone and for further exacerbating these problems.
Well, may I ask another question? Or may I propose a question? That sounds like a nice resolution. Is there any objection if we just went ahead with the item and discussed it in public?
There will be certain advice that I won't give, but that's fine.
I beg your pardon?
I said that may preclude the advice that I give, but that's fine.
Right. In other words, if we want to go forward and discuss this in public,
Let's do.
we'll be more than happy. We're trying to be certain not to step on any legal toes.
That's fine. That's fine.
So you want us to recess while you, or do you want to?
No, what I was asking is if the council would like to briefly recess so that we can have that conversation. If not, the council is more than welcome to move forward and discuss whatever it wants in open session. That just may impact what it is that I said, but I have no problem with that.
Mr. Waymire, I would say that if we proceed openly and we do hit a pothole that we really got to go back there and consult with you, then okay, but a lot of times you give us advice during the meetings anyhow. So, I mean, in terms of, like we just talked about the agenda items, but if we proceed openly, I'm willing to say we hit something really rough and there's clearly, we got to go in closed session. I'm not against that. This just seems a little vague to me. So I'm happy to proceed openly.
Correct. That is very general advice that would be dispensed regardless. When we're dealing with pending and threatened litigation and contractual matters, it becomes different. And so that certainly impacts the advice that I can and will give, but I have no problem with the council discussing this and proceeding that way.
Well, council members,
May I ask a question, please?
yes.
Is Councilmember Pulley going to be a part of this discussion pending some issues?
I think to proceed on this point, we need a motion.
A motion to proceed on
A
this
a
item,
motion to, well,
because there could be very uncomfortable discussions. and
Absolutely.
legal matters,
We need
and
to
we've been trying not to have that happen, but if it needs to happen, we'll go for it.
I really am going to reiterate, I'm going to recommend that if everyone's agreeable, that we briefly recess. And I consult with city staff.
Maybe we take a vote on that.
Is there any objection to briefly doing that and by consulting with city
We
staff?
will, do I need to take a vote to recess for a moment?
Yeah, I'd like to take a vote to see where we come down.
Okay,
if the Council
so
wants to.
I don't have a motion. May I have a motion on recessing to visit with our attorney?
Mayor, I make the motion that we recess based on our attorney's advice.
I
Do I have a
second.
second? All those, any question?
Just only question, what are you going to consult with staff, right? Not with the council as a whole?
I'm going to talk with staff.
Okay. And
No,
that
the council as a whole.
Brenton and Linda and Maureen.
What's that?
Who does that include? Brenton, Linda, and Maureen?
He wants to know who you are going to consult with during the recess.
Consult with the manager.
Okay, I'm fine, thanks.
Do you have any other comments? Is anyone else? Then,
Call a question.
Did I have a second? I had a second with Aurora?
Yes.
Yes, so, City Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Foley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hambrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Rasco,
Aye.
Motion carries, and it is 3:06. The council will take a short recess for attorney to consult with the manager. Councilmember Pulley left.
He just went to the restroom.
He was outside.
We'll wait for him.
He's still here.
Are you kidding me? Kidding me? I already thought.
Looks like you got whiskey in that bottle there, Jeff. You have whiskey in that bottle, Jeff?
No, it's clear, sir.
Okay.
We will resume the council meeting at 3:20, March 2, 2021. And we will go to our agenda item number 5, discussion and possible action related to an agreement with Pegasus Planning and Development. And our legal counsel, do you have any comment at this time, or should I go forward with the motion on this matter?
I don't,
You do not?
I do not.
All right.
Madam Mayor.
So, Councilmember Hambrick,
I'd like to make a motion that the city of Woodcreek terminate its contract with Pegasus Planning. Also, that the city manager direct him to determine whatever else we owe to them so that it can be paid.
is there a second?
I second that motion.
Councilmember Brizendine, second. We're open for discussion.
I'd like to, understand really the grounds for termination. I mean, it seems like things were moving.
I'd like to address that, please.
Councilmember Brizendine.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that the intent has been totally derailed, and the threat of a lawsuit against Pegasus actually changed their opinion and attitude of the city and how they were handling our project. And I feel like for the amount of money that we were going to spend on that project, that we were losing all of what we were paying for.
Any other comments?
Um,
Councilmember, excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem LeBron.
Okay, my comment goes to, first, let me lay the foundation. My comment comes from a foundation of having participated in what was a successful effort in 2009 that resulted in the Vision 2020 Master Plan that is still an official document of the city. I have watched the progress or lack of progress being made towards the survey instrument. The first, it is a master plan, a comprehensive plan is very specific. It's not anything new. It has a purpose, it has a goal, which is to be the roadmap to the future of the city, an assessment of what the city get the opinions of the citizens, and put a master plan to guide us in the future. I saw the first draft of the survey. I abstained from making comments to not taint the process, but I was not satisfied with the quality of the survey based on the survey prepared in 2009 and other surveys that I have worked with the state and other surveys that I have seen from other cities. I thought it was insufficient. The social media became a discussion of the process and the survey. My concern is that you want the survey to go to the citizens as a clean document where the citizens have no opinion, no bias, have not been in any way influenced on their answers. I felt that was lost. I felt that the quality of the responses that we received in 2009, the percentage of responses that we received in 2009 would not be realized. And I feel, having managed contracts in the past and contractors much larger than Pegasus, that they failed to control the process and manage the process. And for that reason, I think they should be terminated.
Are there any other comments?
I just feel like because I read the preliminary survey information. I sat in on the meeting, at least one. And I saw the social media. I'm not an expert on comprehensive planning. But, I know a pretty good facilitator when I see one. And I thought they did a pretty good job of saying, I think Pegasus was in a difficult position because they saw themselves working for the city and to the committee as representatives of the city. And so it seemed to me like they were doing a pretty good job of trying to rein that in while still showing respect, for their employer. So they were in a very bad position, and it just seems unwise and expensive to terminate them instead of working with them to get the results that we want. But I wasn't in on every conversation, so I don't know, but it just seems to me like we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I would expect that it's going to cost us many thousands of dollars to say goodbye to them, and then we're having to start over with a whole new set of budget items and a whole new consultant, and I'm just developing.
Councilmember
I'm not
Briscoe?
sure that Pegasus,
Let him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought your hand was up
Sorry.
first. I'm acknowledging.
Mr. Pulley may have the floor. I'll
Go
refrain.
ahead, Judy, that's all right.
Councilmember Pulley.
Go ahead.
I feel like, I'm not sure that Pegasus wants to continue their
I
contract
agree.
under the threat of being sued by a council member. And once that happens, I'm not sure that they have our best interest at heart.
Councilmember LeBron, did you have your hand up?
Mr. Pulley can
Mr.
have
Pulley?
the floor.
Okay,
Councilmember Pulley.
I have the floor.
Yes, you
Okay,
did.
thank you.
And your turn.
Yeah, I just want to say, I did send an email to them, not threatening to sue them, but just reminding them of obligations in their open meetings, that decisions shouldn't be made behind closed doors with a couple of staff people, that it should be done in an open meeting. And I don't regret that at all. I don't think it changed anything. I really don't think our grounds are sufficient, but we'll let that play out. I think we're terminating them mainly because we didn't like the answers we were getting from the committee, and I don't think that's valid. I think we ought to be able to listen to people that may have different ideas about things and then incorporate those in how to go forward. I do have a couple of questions, though, and tell me if I'm wrong. I've looked at the check registers, and it looks like we paid $5,500 to them in August. That was the retainer amount. Then it looks like in October, we paid them another $4,500 in October, and then in December, we paid them another $4,000 as well, for a total of $14,000. Does that seem right, Brenton? You need the dates again?
No, I just let me pull up that QuickBooks.
While he's doing that, I think 14,000 is minuscule compared to a $55,000 contract. And rather than proceed with something that has been tainted and we can't get accurate information from our citizens, I feel like it's not prudent financially to move forward.
Do I still have the floor, ma'am?
You have the floor, Councilmember Pulley, to make your comment.
I'm not-
I
I'm
don't
not done
think
yet.
An
that
answer from them.
you don't have
City
the
manager.
floor to ask questions at this time. You can submit.
Okay,
them.
well, let me go ahead and make my comments then. From what I can
Yeah.
tell,
Please
it looks
do.
like we spent $14,000 on these folks already. The last time we paid them was in December, so we wouldn't have paid them if we thought they were doing a lousy job. It's just sometime at the beginning of this year, we suddenly decided they weren't performing properly. In terms of, it's cheaper to pay them $14,000 and get rid of them. I don't know, we've had the point made about termination fees. We don't know what that's going to be because we did sign a contract with them. And so you better have a good reason to breach it. If you don't, you could be responsible for even more damages. So to me, it's throwing money away because we didn't get the answer we wanted. I really don't like throwing $14,000 plus whatever additional amount we're going to pay these people because we don't like the answers we got. So I think it's a bad idea. It's a waste of money. It's turned into a boondoggle again.
Councilmember Hamburg.
It seems that, that I'm hearing that there was no actual lawsuit going forward. That may be clear, but the threat of a lawsuit may be enough for them to carefully consider whether or not they would want to continue. I think they've seen this in the last year that that sort of thing may be going on and that it may also affect them.
Can I go back to that? Okay, to date,
Yes.
we have paid Pegasus $18,000.
Which is
Oh, I'm sorry.
a
Yeah.
pretty
Councilmember
substantial
Lefkow.
part of the overall contract. And, you know, if they indeed do want out because of threat of suit, then it seems like they would be willing to refund us some of the money.
No.
If they want out, sweeten the pot.
If I may, I
Councilmember,
come from the perspective of having terminated a very large contract because of non-performance by the contractor. And there are provisions to terminate, and this was the contract for the new automated eligibility systems in Texas. There is, it is very difficult to say, they did provide services. Were the services to the satisfaction of some of us or all of us? Based on my assessment of their performance, I believe they were not satisfactory. However, to deny payment would be costly for us because they would have a basis to litigate against us because they did provide service. And so we're terminating and saving the city continuing payments, but I don't think that we can go back and ask for the money. We never did.
Okay. Under the contract, they have completed 100% of phase one, the discovery and work planning. Under phase two, they've completed 72% of that, which is learning and listening. And under their phase three synthesis, they're at 25% of that. And that's what they billed us.
And there are some of the things that they did that we can build on. So it's not a complete loss.
So we own that work product.
That's correct.
There are some things.
But that's the work product we don't like, right?
I think that you've made that comment several times, Councilmember Pulley.
It's the first time I
Why-
remember.
I would like to ask you why you're taking the position that any of this contract has to do with the result not being liked by Pegasus or by this staff. I don't know where you're getting that. And I'd like to ask you about that.
Ask me what?
Why are you insinuating that the reason for the contract termination has anything to do with not liking the result of a committee comment. I don't understand.
I just listening, it's like we don't like their work product, that it got infected by social media, that there shouldn't have been listening to citizens, and that kind of thing, that, which I don't understand. I heard that from, I think, council person LeBron. So to me, it sounds like you didn't like the answers, and so you're going to terminate them. But it's not up to me. I mean, it's up to you to prove your position up that you had a good reason to terminate them.
You know, social media is wonderful, but we're not dealing, and perceptions are important. In this case, my position is based on my assessment of their performance. I have looked at some of the documents. I feel, for example, you want to put this on the table? Here it goes. I feel, for example, that there was a lack of foundation and appropriate instructions to the committee. The committee members were allowed certain perceptions, absolutely. I was a member of the committee in 2009. I had a clear understanding of what my role was versus planning and zoning versus the council. There was a lack of understanding of the city, its history. A comprehensive plan has to be based on the history of the city, on the past situation, the current situation, and how to develop it. There was a lack of understanding clearly shown by some of the questions in the questionnaire. Pull the document from 2009. Look at that survey. Look at the survey that was developed by Texas State University. The questions that were asked, the format, the information that was elicited, and look at the draft document that was presented. Very, very different. Pull surveys from other townships and cities across the country. The survey that was proposed, it did not even have, it had a three lines on a message to the citizens. It did not have a message to the citizens that would encourage response and participation. Your plan is as effective as your response from the survey. If the survey document is not designed to elicit at least 30% response and make the citizens fill out a piece of paper instead of throwing it in the trash, it's ineffective. This survey failed, and I am qualified to make that statement.
Councilmember Pulley?
I don't think the survey was ever finalized. I mean, you know, they were basically run off before they even had a chance to finish. So I'm not going to go with that. I think it's a waste for terminating them on insufficient grounds. And then we've already paid them 18 grand. We're pulling them to pay them some more. It's wasting money.
You yourself called me concerned about the quality of the survey, Brent.
No, I called you and was concerned about, you know, manipulation behind closed doors of what the committee was trying to generate.
You were concerned at the discussion that you had with me in the email that the survey, you asked me, are you going to say anything? Because there are elements missing in this survey.
I never saw the survey, so I
you
couldn't
said
ever
that to me.
comment on it. I don't
You
know if
said that
anybody
to me
saw
in
it.
writing. So I thought you share some of the same concerns I have.
Well, you will say, or you will agree, I believe, that you did have input and attempted to influence the survey questions.
I never saw the survey
I
at all.
didn't say you saw the survey. I said you did reach out to members of the committee and you tried and did influence them in an attempt to add and to consider certain agenda items.
I don't recall that, but I
Then
think,
you were unhappy that you were unable to bludgeon staff and Pegasus to accept what you wanted. That's really unhappy.
Are you not willing to take any responsibility for your communications with the committee and with the Pegasus group?
no, I don't think, I think communication is good. And I'm not the one that's going to blow $18,000 firing them, you know. I think the communication with the citizens was good. I think it's proper. People participate, and I'm not afraid of that, so.
Well, I think you had a lot to do with the issue. And with Pegasus perhaps not wanting to continue under the threat of lawsuit, it was not a veiled comment. It was a direct threat.
The man from Pegasus was set up here for 3 or 4 hours during the last meeting. It didn't look like he was running off or wanting to leave. I think he was kind of angry that he was going to get terminated. So I think that's an unfair characterization that they left. We're terminating them. They didn't leave.
Again, do you take no personal responsibility?
I'm not terminating, so I'm not taking responsibility for voting to terminate someone when we shouldn't, especially when we invested all this money into it already.
Mayor, I'd like to call the question, please. I think this is enough discussion.
We'll call the question on action related to terminating the agreement with Pegasus Planning and Development. City Secretary will call the roll.
Councilmember Pulley,
I'm going to vote no. We're wasting more money.
Councilmember Rasto,
Nope.
Councilmember Hambrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Brisendine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Aye.
The motion carries 3 ayes, 2 nays. There being no other business, we'll adjourn the meeting.